Listening there. With today's guide on the topic of discussion, we are going to engage about tendering, explore the strategies for success, and how to unlock these opportunities. Hoping you're going to learn something and that most of the questions you'll ask are answered. Tendering involves the process of formally submitting a written proposal to undertake work, whereby maybe, for example, we always have the procuring entity that is seeking for the services or the goods that you're offering, and we also have potential suppliers who are to submit the bids so that a certain tax can be dealt with. So tendering is a whole broad field, which is always a win-win situation, whereby for the procuring entity, they are just looking majorly at saving cost by having so many people apply for this tender and looking at how many people have applied the tender and who is offering them value for their money as per the budget they are having. So they are looking at getting good products or services or works at a fair price from diverse people in the market. Then another thing for you as a supplier or contractor, what you're getting is you're able to build your portfolio of clients so that you're able to gain more people. You're able to bring more people on board who you're in a position of interacting with, building networks, and having more people to do tenders to contract with. So next slide, you're looking at the procurement cycle. Now, for the procurement cycle, we first begin by the need for recognition. And this is whereby the procuring entity is looking at exactly what do you want, how are we going to solve this problem you're having, and who is going to supply, and what are the specifications that you need this procuring entity to have. So after you decide, you're going to the next step of advertising and selling the tender documents. So once they advertise the tender, they always look for options of advertising the tenders and which option is maybe cheaper for them and easy to use. Now, for example, maybe they can either choose to advertise on print, they can either choose to advertise on their social media pages, they can choose to use online platforms to advertise their tender, they can choose to also use maybe their own personal website, and even it is now preparation and submission of tenders by the tenderers. Now, as a tenderer, you're required to submit your documents in the required format. So you need to understand, how am I going to submit my bids? How am I going to present my bids? Who are the competitors in the market? So this is where you come in. So they have advertised their tender. Now you need to come up in a whole document or a bid document with pre-qualification so that you can prepare that document and submit it for winning. After that, there's a tender opening session, which in most cases always happens to be a live session. During the bid opening, this way you understand all the basics and exactly whatever is required. You also learn, maybe if you're not going to in that tender, you're also going to learn what is the best way to go, what's the best way to go around it so that you can win the next tender that is going to come your way. So after understanding that, now after the bidding opening, there is always a contract award and contract signing. Now for contract award and contract signing, this is whereby the procuring entity now, they have chosen the reliable supplier. Despite the fact that they choose a reliable supplier or contractor, you are always given a two-week window period. If you're feeling that you're not satisfied with whatever they have said or whatever they are telling you, you're given a 2-week window period whereby you can appeal. Now you go to the contract execution. Now for the contract execution, what is required of you is literally, like, as a supplier, you won the contract, you're looking at credibility. You want people to see you as someone trustworthy. You want people to see you as someone who can deliver. What happens is you have to deliver your contract as per the requirements and the needs that are required. Now after that, the procuring entity will evaluate. Once they evaluate the work you've done and they're feeling that the work is per the needs and per the requirements that are required, they're going to keep the records of whatever you've done, so that now the reason why they keep the records, and you as a supplier should also keep the records, is in future you may want to do a tender, and now since you want to do a tender and the procuring entity is telling you, we need maybe confirmation that you ever done this work before. Since you keep your own records, you can go confirm to the procuring entity, I did this work for you, and you evaluated my work and made a payment, so I was just requesting for a recommendation letter of the work that I did before, if that is okay with you. So even if the people in the procurement department have changed, as long as you have your records saved, you have confirmation that a payment was made to your account and everything, to your business account, they'll be able to help you, and now you'll be able to get more tenders from that. Let's move to the next slide, please, Gladwell. Now we always have different types of tenders. Now the first one is always invitation to tender, and then is basically whereby An invitation to tender is basically whereby now a buyer who is the procuring entity sends to potential suppliers, inviting them to submit a bid or proposal for the provision of certain goods or services or works. So it basically, now the difference between an invitation to tender and these other types of advertisement is it always outlines the requirements, the specifications, and the terms and conditions of the procurement process. There is one that I left out, which is the pre-qualification. Now, pre-qualification, on the other hand, is a process used by buyers to assess the qualification and capabilities and financial standing of potential suppliers. So, for this case, know that you won the tender. What the procuring entity is trying to look is who can be our potential supplier for the next 2 or 3 years. So maybe you'll get that your 5 people have been pre-qualified. Before you move to the next step, they need to understand these people are reliable and they can be used to offer certain goods or services. So now, because no one wants to deal with a supplier who cannot submit the bid on time and work on everything on time. Now we also have requests for information, RFX. Now RFX are always three. We have requests for information, requests for quotation, and requests for proposal. These are always different from each other. Now, for a request for information is always just a document that has been used by the procuring entity to gather information from potential suppliers about their capability, the product, services, or works. So it is always used in the early stages of procurement to collect information that will help the buyer better understand the market or assess potential suppliers. They are just looking at you as a supplier. What is it that you can provide for them? What is it that you can offer? If it is something reliable, they are going to move with you. If it is not reliable, they won't move with it the next level, because the procuring entity, as I've said it and I'll keep saying it, they don't want to work with a supplier that they know won't be able to deliver, and they'll keep having issues with them. No, they always want to work with someone who can deliver to the fullest. On the other hand, an RFP is always more whereby a buyer invites supplier to submit detailed proposals outlining how they will meet the buyer's requirements. Now, how are you going? Now, for this one, the procuring entity doesn't tell you what to do. You confirm to the procuring entity that you can be in a position of delivering value, and you can be in a position of giving them value for the money. So whatever the difference between an RFP and the others is, it always includes specifications, evaluation criteria, terms and conditions, and also allows supplier to propose solutions and pricing. So in most cases, the procuring entity is trying to get what else are you going to offer us, and how are we going to solve the problems that you are having as of the moment. Now, on the other hand, an expression of interest is a formal document that is used by the potential supplier to express their interest in participating in a procurement process. Now, for this is not a tender. Before you move to the next level, in most cases, expression of interest are used in consultant services. So maybe you're a consultant, you want to offer certain services, so they ask you, share with us an expression of interest, indicating on how you can be in a position to offer your services. So the procuring entity is just trying to gauge your interest now. So the moment they get the interest, that's when they can maybe issue an invitation to tender. And the invitation to tender is going to be issued only to those organizations that can fully meet the requirements. Then another thing, the last one is invitation to bid. Now, for an invitation to bid is whereby potential suppliers are invited to submit competitive bid for the supply of goods, services, or work. So it specifies, now for invitation to bid, they're going to specify with you the requirements, the terms, the conditions, and even ask you to submit their bid based on those specifications. Now, don't go outside the specification. If the specification requires you maybe to submit, requires you 3 references, have 3 references. Don't submit 1 reference and believe that you're going to move the next one, because they're clearly outlined exactly what they want. They go to the extent of outlining so that you can understand exactly what they want as a person and have a clear overview of it. Now, each of these documents only serves a specific purpose within the procurement process, and varies in terms of the level of detail required for suppliers and the stage of the procurement process at which it is used. So at which it is going to be issued. So let's move to the next slide, please, Gladys. Now, for the next slide, most people always have an issue when it comes to identifying the right tender opportunities. And what I can say is that there are always so many tender opportunities that are always available for you as a supplier or contractor to try out. Now, examples of areas whereby you can get these tender opportunities are maybe print media. We always see newspaper released on a daily basis, and mostly newspapers are always used by procuring. Newspapers are always used maybe by government organizations, since they can afford the budget. Apart from government organization, maybe public organization, counties, parastatals, but most parastatals maybe they go to MyGov. So you can get, maybe we have the Standard, we have the Nation. Nowadays we have the Star, and the Star is always offered every Tuesday free of charge. So now maybe you can now try now get all the tenders that are listed on the Star. However, there are all limitations, because not all the tenders are only advertised on Tuesday. Tenders are advertised as from Monday to Saturday. So, and tenders are advertised all over online, offering different types of services. And another place whereby you can get this type of tenders is organization website. I'll use an example of Kenya Power. Kenya Power has tenders almost weekly, and not only one tender, so many tenders. KenGen the same. And they are looking for different services. So not only just because it is Kenya Power and deals with lighting doesn't mean that they are not going to have tender for supply of stationery. At one point or another, they are going to have that type of tender. So it's up to you as a supplier to go to their portal, to look for different places where you're going to get this information easily, because also you're looking at getting these tenders on time so that you can try them out. Another place whereby you can access these tenders is PPIP. PPIP is the Public Procurement Information Portal. This is whereby you're going to get all information related to tendering, be it tenders advertised by the public are required to be on PPIP, but not in most cases, not all of them are going to be there. And in some instances, you can get that maybe a tender was advertised maybe like 2 weeks ago, last week, and now they're going to put it on PPIP maybe this week. So it's up to you as a supplier to be able to look for this tender on time, so that you can have humble time of maybe preparing the tender documents and being in a position of getting them and submitting a great bid. Another place whereby you can get these tender opportunities is online tender platforms, like for example TenderSoko. Now we have TenderSoko, we have the UNGM platform that shares all United Nations tenders, as well as tenders that have been any tender that the United Nations is funding. When you go to the UNGM platform, you're in a position of getting that tender there, and there are always so many tenders that have they're always that not all of their tenders are on the newspapers. They'll put maybe 1 or 2 tenders, but most of the tenders they're having, most of the organizations they're funding to do their tenders, you'll get the tenders that are listed on the UNGM portal. Now, when it comes to online tender platforms, like for example TenderSoko for our case, you'll get that we not only specify specific organizations that you're going to share the tenders with. We are going to put all these tenders in one place, so that you can make it easier for as a supplier to get these tenders. What I always look at online platform is more like shopping at a supermarket now versus visiting. Maybe you want to buy multiple products or goods. Now you decide to go to the supermarket versus visiting multiple. So now when you go to the supermarket, you're going to have, maybe you want to buy soap. You're going to have so many range of products that you're going to choose from under one roof. But visiting a store, maybe you'll get that you don't want the exact product you want is not maybe in that. So that's exactly what an online tender platform is. So whatever it does is just providing you an array of procurement opportunities into a single digital space. We have so many of them, and I've just listed one, maybe TenderSoko. So whatever you do is now you're going to get that maybe instead of going to the going to the Kenya Power website, go to KenGen, go to maybe geothermal development company, you get all these tenders in one place, be it NGOs, be it government entities, be it institutions, private entities, churches. You're in a position of getting all these tenders in one place. So the platform basically is just to offer you a one-stop shop for all your tendering needs, making the process efficient and very hassle-free. Let's move to the next slide. So I wanted to share with you an overview of the exact number of tender adverts that we've shared on our platform. This year, right from January 1st to yesterday. So you see, like maybe for private organization, you have shared 26 tender adverts, and 26 tender adverts, that doesn't mean that there are 26 tenders. It means that we are having so many tenders that were shared during that period of time. Maybe a single company maybe had like 10 tenders that wanted to advertise. So that one is considered a single advert. Institutions, we saw 35 institutions advertising. So institutions, we are looking at primary schools, secondary schools, and universities. Parastatals, we are seeing 369 tender adverts. And as I had just mentioned, Kenya Power, KenGen, Kenya Pipeline Company, Geothermal Development Company, Rural Electrifications, Kenya Rural Roads Authority, those are the major those are the major contractors when it comes to tenders in the parastatal space. Then, for example, NGOs, we had 108 tenders that we uploaded or tender adverts that we uploaded on our site. So whatever happens now, NGOs, and you get now most of the NGOs that did their tenders, maybe a World Vision was the leading, United Nations was the leading, and still at the same time, we put 108. Maybe when you go again to the UNGM website, you're also going to get numerous circles. We had 17 circles. Muhasibu Sako was having tenders, Tima Sako was having tenders, Vision Africa was having tenders. So tenders across Kenya were just now circles across Kenya were advertising tenders for different services. Now, when it comes to water companies, let's mention Athi Water Company. They were like having 19 tender adverts. We had one church advertising a tender, and we had 221 public tenders. Now, public tenders are maybe from the county government of Kakamega, county government of Kisumu, county government of Turkana, Garissa. They were having so many type of tenders that they were being able to share. So now, of all the tenders that we were able to upload on our site, there were 796 tenders. So of them, 673 have closed, and 123 are still open and running. So out of the 123 open tenders, you get maybe a single tender has maybe multiple tender adverts. So that means that you're able to get, if you're a supplier, maybe you supply stationaries, if you offer different consultancy services, you're able to get an array of tenders that you're going to select from. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now, we were looking at the common eligibility criteria that is widely known by everyone. Now, for the first one is open international tenders. Now, as much as we have all these tenders that have been advertised, doesn't mean that you can apply for all the tenders. There's always an eligibility criteria that has to be followed before you apply for those type of tenders. Now, for example, open international tender, this is whereby they're inviting bids from suppliers worldwide. So now, for example, as a supplier or as a contractor, you are competing with people maybe in Serbia, so that maybe you're competing with people in the UK, in the US, in South Africa, because an international tender, there's no one that is going, so it allows competition worldwide. And another one is open national tenders. Now, this one, people can't be within the country borders. Anyone in Nairobi can, be it Garissa, be it Turkana, you're in a position of maybe getting this type of tender. Then you have local tenders. Now, for local tenders, this is whereby they choose a specific region. Maybe, for example, it is the county government of Kilifi. Now, they only say that we want only people in Kilifi to apply for this type of tender. Then we have AGPO and reserve. For a reserve tender, that's why maybe they are going to say people under the reserve group are always women, youth, and people with disabilities. Now, youth, we are talking about the age of 18 to 34. That is the age range that they have given. And the government has made it so clear, each and every organization, 30% of the tenders they're going to share should go to the marginalized group. So they're the ones that are going to decide on how they're going to split that 30%. What are going to the women, or are we just going to be advertising them as PW, as AGPO, so that everyone else can apply for them, be it a youth and female. So now, for you to access AGPO, first of all, you have to be a male or female between the age of 18 and 34 years. Another thing you're supposed to be, if you're living with a disability, you're supposed to be proved by the and licensed by the Kenya National Council of People Living with Disabilities. They'll give you a certificate to indicate you're a person with disability and you're able to apply for this type of tenders as long as you have a company. Another thing that, other than the usual registration documents, as an AGPO supplier, you're required to obtain an AGPO certificate from the Treasury. Now, having an AGPO certificate enables you to go ahead and apply for this type of tenders, because you cannot apply for this type of tenders yet you don't have an AGPO certificate. That means you're going to be disqualified. Now, we always have instances whereby maybe you are a youth, or you are a woman or a person with disability, and your partner is someone who is not under the marginalized group. Now, what the government requires you, so that you can be able to access those opportunities, is to own 70% of the total company shares. So if you want to try these tenders out, so if you're maybe under the women, youth, and it's a partnership, if you're owning 70% of the shares, that's okay. You can go ahead and apply for these type of tenders. Now, let's move to the next slide, please. Now we are going to, I'm trying to be as fast as possible so that we can answer some of your questions, because we had so many questions, and that is the most important bit. So now, the tendering do's and don'ts. The first thing when you're doing tenders is always do your research and never be in a rush, because for example, you get a tender today and it's closing maybe in 2 weeks time. Doesn't mean that since you are going to submit your tender tomorrow, they'll declare you as the winner. No, they won't declare you as a winner. Whatever is required, you take your time, take your space. If they require you to attend pre-bid meetings, attend the pre-bid meetings. If they require you to have a checklist, clear out this is exactly this is what they want, this is what, take time to go through because some documents are so huge. That's why you'll get maybe a tender, the tenders they advertise maybe for 31 days. The tender they advertise for 30 days. This because these tender are complex in nature, then they require a lot of time and information. Don't have the pressure of showing the procuring entity that I can, since I submitted my bid on time, that's a clear indication that I can complete or I can do this work on time. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to take your time. If they say the deadline maybe of submitting the bid is maybe on 21st April, maybe you can decide by 20th or 19th, let me go submit my bid. And if it requires you to go with your bid, you can go see with a serialized bid, well closed bid, present it to them when they're opening the bid on time. They say that come with the bid by 10. If you come with it at 11, it's going to be disqualified. They're not going to open your bid. You're going to be cancelled. It will mean that the work that you've done for all this period of time has been cancelled out. So it's always very important to keep time, at the same time not being in a rush. Take your time, understand the requirements. If there's nothing you're not understanding, always consult. Look for organizations that can share with, maybe for example you are able to get a tender and a tender document, and if there's a point you're not understanding, you can always feel free, maybe for example contacting TenderSoko, just contact one person. This person will be in a position of helping you in the manner that, okay, hey, I didn't understand this part of the tender document, what does it mean? They'll be able to share with you, or someone will be able to guide you and tell you, okay, this or that, whatever they required. And they are not going to charge you for like inquiring about a tender document, because that's exactly what we do. So we won't go into the top asking, okay, now you have to pay first so that you can give you the responses. No, what you're always looking at sharing an opportunity for everyone being in a position of accessing these tenders and taking their business to the next level. Another thing is always demonstrate your value and highlight your strength. Don't leave them out. Show these people that you are this is what I'm bringing, this is what is of value. Just since they have said that we need someone to supply me a pen, doesn't mean that you just go bring the pen and supply them the pen. What value are you going to bring in? Because if you attend these tender bid meetings and sessions, you learn that tender opening session, you learn that people go out of the way to try and prove to them the value they are going to bring on board. What is it they are going to show that the organization is getting value for money? As much as they have an idea, as much as they know what they want, they also want to hear from you. What are you going to give them? What are you offering them as of that moment? Another thing that you're supposed to do is provide clarity and show past success. Clarity in the essence, be clear, state this is my price and this is how I've quoted it. Put in mind all the price. We have the labor cost, the material cost, all those costs. Put them in order so that they can know, okay, this is whatever they require, and this is the cost, and this is whatever is going for labor. This is the price of the product, and so that you can be able to understand where you are charging that price. Because at the end of the day, we have people who overquote their price, and we have people who underquote. So now, underquoting doesn't benefit you in most cases. It maybe can benefit the procuring entity, but again, if the procuring entity sees that you've underquoted your product, they're not going to give you the price, because they already know the market value of that product. What they want to see you as a supplier, are you ready to work with them and build those networks and connections and move to the next level? Another thing is always use a collaborative approach. In this essence, now you filled your bid document, maybe you're the one in charge of procurement. Always seek for a second hand, seek for second help, in the essence that you ask someone, hey, I filled this tender document, are you in a position of helping me check if there is any, are you in a position of proofreading, understand? Because at the end of the day, no one wants to go through a tender document and get so many spelling mistakes, so many errors. It was done in a rush. They asked you maybe to attach a tax compliance certificate, you never applied it, and you start telling them that you're going to bring it on time. It literally shows that you're not reliable. They keep reminding you of exactly what to do. People want to work with people that are in a position of delivering value and instantly. Let's move the next slide, please. Now we have the general requirements. What is required for you to supply a tender? Maybe it's a pre-qualification or something. What are the major general requirements? Now we have the business registration certificate. Companies or organizations work with other organizations. They don't work with individuals. As much as maybe your name is maybe Lois, and now maybe they won't work with Lois as a person. They are going to work with TenderSoko, because they don't want to deal with an individual since only an individual is benefited. But now when it comes to maybe working with TenderSoko, they are looking at maybe having an array of people who are working together so that they can bring this project to a success. So always ensure that you have your business registration certificate ready when you're trying to apply for your biz, a certificate of incorporation, a valid tax compliance, an AGPO certificate, a KRA PIN certificate. Since now tax compliance in most cases you're required to have, it should not be expiring in the next 6 months, because sometimes they tend out, despite the fact that they always say it should be within 30 days. In some cases you get that it is almost over 30 days, and the procuring entity has not yet done with the evaluation, or they have not shared the feedback. So what is required of you as a supplier or procuring entity is to ensure that your tax compliance is maybe 6 months before 6 months before expiry or anything. So let's move to the next slide, please, Gladwell. Now we have the additional requirements. Now, one of the requirements is the company profile. You need to have your company profile, a well elaborated company profile. People nowadays, everything is online, everything is digital. People want to present your company well. Now, how are you going to present your organization to the procuring entity? Are you going to tell them that you're not in a position of submitting this bid on time because are you in a position of telling them we don't have a company profile, and yet you want them to give them a job? Show them something that is of value to them. Another thing is email addresses. Try your level best and maybe have domain email addresses. For example, if it is a TenderSoko, maybe at tendersoko.com. If it is whatever organization you're working in, try to have a domain email, an email that is not for an individual. Yes, some instances they give you, but in most cases, try your level best to show them this is an entity, this is an organization, not an individual. Now, when I come and use my email, Lois@gmail, I'm limiting them from understanding that this is a company. Now they have again to go back and confirm Lois is from which company, Lois at Gmail. Instead of just using make their work easier by making it so simple. This is TenderSoko, Lois at TenderSoko.com. So this Lois is from TenderSoko. So you already have your name in the email, you already have the name of the company in the email. So it makes their work so easy. Another thing that you're supposed to have is the bank accounts. The bank account, companies don't make payments in your individual bank account. They'll always pay on your company bank account. So ensure that bank accounts are in order. You already have the audited account. When they request for audited statements, give them audited statements, be it 3 years, how many years, just share them, because each and every requirement that is required in the tender document always has some marks on it. So always try your level best and put that into consideration. Another thing is the e-teams. Now people are doing away with the ETR. So if you're working with you're planning to work maybe with the government NGOs, right now they'll ask you, are you e-teams compliant? They are not looking at ETR. Now people have shifted. Now they're looking at you having an e-teams so that it can make as per the requirements by KRA. Another thing is business permit. Now, where are your location? They want to work with people that have physical locations. They don't want to say like maybe I don't know where these people is looking now. To have a location, definitely you have an office. Having an office set up means you have a business permit of having your office in that specific location. Another thing are maybe the rubber stamp. The rubber stamps are used for serialization. It indicates, okay, this is for this company and their documents are well serialized. Another thing is the NCA certificate that is used for, maybe that one is used in the construction sector. Now, what happens with an NCA certificate is, if you're in the construction sector, maybe they need you to have an NCA 2, NCA 3, NCA 4, NCA. It depends. So you have to understand, do you have the required NCA certificate before applying for that tender? Because construction, we've seen so many buildings around Nairobi and the outskirts falling down. Maybe they didn't maybe have the necessary documents before going on to those type of tenders. So the best thing is have your documents in order so that even if something happens or you have an issue and you're doing your contract, they won't say that you didn't have the required certificate to do that. Another thing is financing. We have different types of financing. Banks offer financing, we have LPO financing. Sometimes they require you to have bid bonds, performance bonds. So it's always very important for you as a supplier to put that into consideration. Another thing is the relevant body certificates. Now, this one is for those in the procurement, those in the consultancy services sectors in some cases. Now, for example, you're going to, maybe you're an HR, you're supposed to provide the HR consultancy services. Whatever, maybe they'll ask you maybe to share a certificate to indicate that you're in the HR body. Maybe you show that certificate, maybe to indicate that you're in a marketing body. Share certification. You are in the relevant body of that. Maybe, for example, in the procurement space, indicate to them, show them that you're in that space. So it's always very important to have your documents in order. Those things that look so tiny, they always matter so much. So it, as a person, ensure you have the documents in order, and you'll be in a position of maybe moving to the next level. Another thing that you're going to look at the benefits of tendering as an SME. One thing we should always not overlook at one thing people look at tendering, they always look at it maybe as make rich money, a grow rich money scheme or something. It is not. Whatever is required for you, you should look at tendering as an opportunity for you as a supplier or contractor to grow your business, to move to build more network, because in some instances you get maybe and procuring entity was using they required your services, you offered a great services. Now they also need the same services, but however they cannot go through the whole process of preparing tender documents, coming up with the requiring bid. So what happens is they'll go ahead and decide to give you they'll go ahead and decide to give you the job, because prior you had offered them great services and you are able to deliver on time. Now, one of the benefits of tendering as an SME is increased visibility. That you are able to, people are able to see your business, because at the end of the day, sometimes it is published, maybe in the public procurement information portal, you get information there, maybe you want this tender, you're able to also get recommendation letters from them. So you're going to work with so many people. Like, for example, national government, NGOs, most of NGOs will always ask for recommendation letter, maybe the organization that you worked with them of similar nature. Try your level best, like you make yourself visible. Now maybe going for those tender meetings, tender openings, despite the fact that you've not won that tender, you're going to gain something from it, because the organization will feel like, okay, this is someone reliable, and we can work with and move to the next level with, because they were able to, for example, you want to work with UNHCR, and last week maybe you worked with maybe last year you had already worked with UNGM, not UNGM, sorry for that, UNICEF. What they'll say, okay, they worked with the UNICEF, then they were able to deliver. Maybe they contacted someone, the services were so great. Now, what happens is they are going to approve your services, and you're able to also grow your networks in that process. So you'll get yourself working for so many people at the same time. Another thing is that it offers you an opportunity to grow, because at the end of the day, you're not opening a business so that you can close it tomorrow. You're opening a business so that you can be in a position of moving to the next level, seeing it grow, and winning larger contracts. Because when you're starting out, you always start with the smaller. We always call them baby steps. You have to chew what you can swallow. So what you do is take the baby steps. Now maybe you began maybe a contract of 50,000, you move to 100,000, 200. Now as you do that, as you climb the ladder, you are learning. You're knowing, okay, this organization, because we've seen all this information all over. This organization, maybe they don't pay on time. This organization, they're having this problem. So it is always great. You try your level best and follow all this information and know exactly what is required, because you're going to gain the knowledge and experience. You're literally going to learn this environment. Maybe you don't want to apply for a tender, you're in the construction sector and there's a tender opening. Go for that tender opening. Just learn, interact with the people there. Maybe you can get one person who is open enough, who is going to give you one or two advices that are going to help you to move to the next level. Who is going to tell, okay, this is how we do, this is how we do this bit. You're going to learn, because maybe this person has been in the game for 10 years. You're just starting out right now. The best thing is learn from the people in the field, and also learn when you're in the field. Now, when learning in the field is you learn of the mistakes that you've done, and you are not going to repeat the same mistake. You learn of what you're supposed to do, and you're in a position to do that and be able to move to the next level. Another thing is building a strong brand reputation. Now, when it comes to building a strong brand reputation, is you, when you're given a contract, try your level best and do it to completion. Because if you don't do the contract to completion, it means that as a supplier, you are not reliable. Now, when you're not reliable, what happens is the procuring entity feels like they won't give a recommendation letter, and some instances you are required to answer a no history non-history performance contract. Now, what happens is that now when you're sharing that and they learn that maybe you did not complete 30% of your contract previously, they'll be afraid to work with you, because no one wants to work with someone they know that won't deliver, or has to be followed so that they can deliver. They want to believe that you're reliable, you're someone that they can move with and grow to the next level. Another thing is improved efficiency and productivity. Now, most people look at tendering, as I said, for their business and money and putting money in their pocket. But the reality is when you go to these events and learn that okay, so and so won the tender because they were able to put their tender in this manner. Now what happens is, since you're reliable, since they were able to differentiate their product from you, you as a person, you also go and improve that idea of theirs and make it better. So the next time you're going for that bid, you also have a better idea that outshines the others. So it gives you an opportunity to steal ideas. It's always not wrong to steal ideas, but also it is always great. Now when you steal an idea, improve on it to be better. Now you get yourself in a position of bettering ideas. So you get, as much as you're not doing tenders, maybe you're supplying to other people. People are getting value, even if now you decide maybe to increase the prices, there's value for whatever you are going to offer the people as of that moment. So it is always very important. Now sometimes you get that maybe you've done a tender and they require you to have you're required to have feedback. Don't never ignore and say that I don't want to get feedback from this procuring entity, because what always happens is that you get the required feedback, you want to be in a position of maybe moving to the next level. So getting feedback enables you to identify your weaknesses. What area of weaknesses? Now it always enables you to fall short in. I need to work to strategize improve it in my future bids. I need to refine maybe my pricing strategy. My pricing strategy is not correct. Now, how am I going to refine it? Now, how am I going to ensure my technical capabilities as per what the procuring entity requires? Since most tenders whereby there are tender openings, you always get that information there. So sometimes you leave there knowing my bid is not anywhere close to whatever they wanted, or my bid is close to that. So you always keep learning. So the more you keep improving your bid, the more you keep boosting your business. The next, so since you are learning from the mistake you're making. Another thing is you are able to build relationship. Now, when you actively seek feedback, offers you an opportunity for you to learn from your mistake and avoid repeating the mistakes in the future tender submissions. Another thing is relationship. Now, improving relationships in the form of continuous in the form of professionalism. Now when it shows that you're professional, you're able to organization despite the fact that they didn't give you the tender. Now this makes it so easy. Now it enables you to have a positive relationship with the procurement officials. Another thing is it enables you to stay competitive. One thing for sure, the market is a very competitive market, and now the moment you understand why your bid was unsuccessful, you'll be able to be armed with the knowledge that is required that will help you tailor your future proposal to align with the needs and expectations of the buyer. Another thing is you always demonstrate accountability as a person. Yes, you lost the tender, and now since you lost the tender, you're willing to learn and adapt from whatever. So also the procuring entity will have that essence of this person is willing to learn and move to the next level. So it is always important as a supplier, despite that the fact that you've lost a tender, always seek feedback, be proactive. And now, the more you are proactive, you're able to learn, improve, and you'll position yourself very competitive for future opportunities, because all these people that have grown in the market have been able to move the next level. Another case is maybe, for example, early this year, we had an issue whereby a procuring entity felt like they were not well evaluated. Now, when the moment the bids were announced and they shared their bid and complained about it and said, okay, for our case, everything was in order, but they never awarded us because maybe we were offering 80, maybe the difference between the amount of money was maybe 11 million or something. So now the procuring entity on the other, what happens now? PPRA goes ahead and looks at your complaints and sees like maybe they were not given the window, the required window for you as a supplier to complain about it. Now what happens is the whole process is broken down. That happened recently to NEMA. NEMA was not in a position to go on with the contract that they had given to another organization because someone came and complained about it. Despite this other party not being able to meet the technical requirements of having maybe three references, they were able to block the whole process from going ahead. So as a supplier or contractor, you also have your rights and you need to understand them and always stand for the cause at the end of it all, because PPR is always the watchdog when it comes to tenders. So when you go with the complaint, they're going to evaluate. The board is going to sit down and look at your complaint. If it is something that makes sense, they're going to move. We've seen last year. We've seen so many cases. We've seen KEMSA cases. We've seen Kenya Ports Authority cases. We've seen Kenya Power cases. All these cases coming from because someone else was able to come and say, okay, I didn't win this tender. However, I felt that I was in the best position. I met all the criteria and everything. So you can go ahead and pledge your complaint, and the PPRA will be able to listen to your complaint. In your complaint for example, people in the ACPO group, now those are the women, with people with disability, and the youth. They can also, for example, they don't. We had the same early this year, the same thing happened whereby the Kenya Ports Authority maybe charged around 8 people, employees, in regards to the same case whereby they took a tender for the disadvantaged groups and they went with the tender. Now, what happens is now, definitely the tender won't go ahead, the case in court, and the tender won't go ahead. Now, as the youth, people with disability, and women, those are the type of tenders that you're supposed to be going for. Now, as I come almost to an end, what I can say is, when it comes to tendering, you first require, as an entrepreneur, you're required to decide, am I going to this or not? And if you're not going to do this, why is it that you're not going to? Why is it am I not going to do it? Because you have, at the end of the day, you have to evaluate the risks that are involved in you doing it, and choose whether you're going down that road or not. Another thing is, take each step at a time, put your documents in order, ask for clarification, ask for someone who can help you, like, understand. They require this document, what is it? Don't do it blindly. Maybe they require you have to have a certain document, what is it? Try your level best to put everything in order. Another thing is always to set your achievable goals. At the end of the day, you're looking at winning something. Don't be over ambitious. For example, you've never done maybe a 1 million tender, now you want to go for a 100 million tender. It never works like that. Just set achievable goals that you know you can achieve. Now, the more you go baby steps, you'll be able to learn, because you cannot have a baby this month and expect the baby to start eating food next month. That is impossible. So always take the baby steps. Another thing is to invest in yourself as a supplier or contractor. Have full information and knowledge, because the information and the knowledge you're having is the power that you're going to have when you're trying to do this. And at the end of the day, don't focus only on government and parastatals. We have so many tenders. NGOs do have so many tenders, as I've just shared the statistics. Go for those types of tenders. We have so many parastatals that go for those tenders that you feel. Do your research, understand this organization has these issues, they've been having these issues, or maybe not playing for the supplies for this period of time. Another thing is, now when you're applying for this tender, look at the probability. Maybe most tenders you get, maybe you're given a 30 window period for payment or a 60 window period for payment. What you're supposed to look at, if these people are not going to pay me on time, will I be in a position of doing my next contract? If these people don't pay, will it mean my business will have to stop? Because at the end of the day, only one single tender can make you close your business down, because you spend all the finances and resources in that business, and you are not in a position of moving to the next level, and your business closed down. So it's very important. Always look at, don't ignore the risks. Never ignore, as saying that you never ignore the risk. Calculate them, know what is your risk appetite. Are you ready to go for this? Move to the next. The another thing is interact with the right people. Don't walk alone. Have people who are doing the tenders, people that share the same goal as you. Now, the more you do it, the more you're going. But if you get people that will tell you, oh, tendering is wrong, tendering is bad, you can't do tenders, you're going to lose all your money, you will never be paid. The more you do that, there's someone else, maybe for example, maybe you wanted to start doing tenders in 21, you've never done them. Someone in 2023 began, maybe 2021 after you thought of the idea. This person is having 3 years experience. Now this person is ahead of you, as opposed to you who is afraid of doing the tenders. Because as you shared, like for example, this year on our website, we have had maybe 796 tenders. Those are so many tenders that you cannot say that maybe you could have lacked an opportunity in one. Maybe let's just maybe say you apply for 10 tenders. It's just like applying for a job opportunity. There's that will call maybe to go for pre-qualification, and will be pre-qualified and will never supply. That those type of things will happen, but always take the baby step. Another thing, always have the confidence and be professional when transacting business deals. They always say maybe shortcuts are great, but sometimes when you're caught up, they always interfere with the way of doing your business. So it's always very important, you as a place, to have a unique value proposition, brand yourself in the field, show people that you deliver value. Because at the end of the day, even if you go to these public websites, just go check the list of procurement. You'll get there's that one supplier who is unique. He's in each and every pre-qualification document. Why? Because this person is willing to take the risk. Now he's in each and every, now the moment he's maybe in 4 or 5 of them, definitely you'll get that. Maybe there are those tenders you'll be called for, there are those maybe you'll not be called for. Another example is, maybe for example, we have a subscription service for people viewing tenders on our site. Someone started maybe subscribing as early as 2017, and they have never stopped subscribing. So it means that this person is willing to take the risk, is ready to go for this, and is ready to look for all these tenders on the platforms, so that he can ensure that he has enough information, he has enough tenders that have been advertised, and is able to take the next step. Another thing is attend the educational and motivational meetings. Don't ignore them. Maybe in that meeting, for example, the same way you're in this meeting, you can get maybe someone is reliable that you feel that can supply for you a certain good and offer them a certain good. Suppliers can maybe, for example, you deal with stationaries. Someone else is dealing with computers. They can supply you stationaries and you supply them with computer, because at the end of the day, you need each other. So build networks, grow your networks. Your network is your network, as they always just say. Ensure that you always engage them and never stop learning, because as you said, it is a continuous process and you need to always understand. So as I wrap up and maybe move to the next session, what I can ask you is don't look at tendering as just an opportunity for you winning contracts. It's also about seizing those opportunities, building relationships, and driving growth.
Thank you, Christine, for the feedback. And hopefully, we'll be having more engagements like this and we'll be able to share them with you. And I'm really glad you attended. And hopefully, we'll have many more of this. Thank you, everyone.